This is the new Caddx Protos ready-to-fly digital FPV drone kit. In this box, you get the drone itself, a set of FPV goggles, remote controller, and everything you need to get up and running. Now, CaddX are aiming this drone at new users, and what I'm going to do today is give you my overview and full review of this drone kit, but we're also going to be talking about the new Ascent digital FPV system as well, including sharing with you the results of my latency testing. Now, this is a very long video. It snowballed into one of the biggest videos I've made for quite some time. I've also already released separate videos on this system. We have a teardown of the Ascent FPV goggles, a teardown of the Protos drone, as well as a repair video on my goggles, which we'll talk about a bit more later on as well. Anyway, let's get on with it. Let's take a look at what this new Protos drone kit is all about, and then see if it's any good. Okay, so let's get into the kit. I'm just going to slice that packaging along there, and I just want to give you a bit of a view of how it comes and thoughts from a new starter perspective. So the box opens like that. We then have the case. Oh yeah, quite plasticky, pungety, that one. And then, ta-da, inside we have everything somewhat thrown in, I think is the word I'll use. We've got our power supply, which isn't British. I wonder how many issues the team who are selling these in the UK will get with that. That's something you might need to be aware of, because people are going to be getting that going, well, that don't fit. We've then got our goggles power cable, our USB cable. We've got the drone, the bat drone, the batteries, the goggles battery, which is very similar to DJI's. It's not the same. Not charged either. XT30 on that side there. USB-C there for charging. We've got the remote controller, which is based on Express LRS. The drone itself, which is a bit smaller actually than I was expecting. I don't know why. There it is. And we'll look at all of this in a bit more detail in a minute. We've got the charge hub underneath the drone. And then we've got the goggles, which are basically a reworked version of the goggles L from CaddX. Very similar to what we've seen before. And then in the top of the pack, we have spare canopy, props, another USB cable, and then a safety card and instructions. Okay, so this drone is designed to be a new user drone. It's designed to get people into FPV, help them fly quickly and simply. CaddX believe they've put a package together that offers a balance of new user experience with FPV capabilities. It is a drone that certainly isn't quite as dumbed down as the likes of the DJI Neo, but it also isn't as feature-rich as the DJI Neo either, making it more of an FPV-centric product, but again, designed for new users. Size-wise, the drone itself is 78mm corner-to-corner on the motors. It is smaller than the likes of the DJI Neo. You can see the two side by side there. However, it isn't quite as feature-rich as the Neo either. So for instance, whilst the DJI Neo has GPS on board, this doesn't, but it does have a couple of other little features which we'll talk about later on. When it comes to that FPV system, the Protos drone is based on CaddX's brand new Ascent Light digital FPV system. This supports a maximum frame rate of 60 frames a second up to 1080p resolution, and it transmits that wirelessly on the 5.8 GHz band. Something just to note about this new Ascent system is that it is not the same or compatible with the existing Avatar HD system. What that means is this drone can only be used with these brand new goggles that they've included in the kit. Unfortunately, this system is not compatible with either the CaddX Goggles X, Goggles L, or the original Avatar HD goggles. Something else to note is that this is the only product today based on this new Ascent system. However, CaddX have publicly said that they intend to release not only standalone VTXs, but VRX modules for this Ascent system in the future, allowing people to use it with the likes of the Goggles X. But here and now, this system is only compatible with the goggles that they include in the box. To power this drone, CaddX include their own proprietary 2S lithium-ion batteries. These are rated at 840 mAh, and CaddX say they will give you up to 10 minutes of flight time. The batteries themselves are just these little plastic square blocks. There is a custom connection down here. There is no XT30 or anything like that on it. And to power the drone up, you simply slide the battery into the back. It will then latch in, there's a clip on the top, and the drone will power up once it's connected. To charge these batteries, CaddX have included this 3-way hub in the kit. This has a USB-C port on the side, and this hub allows you to charge and store the batteries as well. Just something to note on this drone is that these are not smart batteries like you might find from DJI. They will not self-discharge or look after themselves. So if you charge the batteries and you intend to fly and then change your mind, you will need to pop them into the hub and set them to storage charge rather than just leave them take care of themselves. When it comes to the remote controller, this is included in the kit and it is based on the 2.4 GHz Express LRS system. Now this has been customized by CaddX for use with the Protos drone. As far as I understand it right now, this hasn't been officially supported by the Express LRS dev team. It isn't clear exactly what version of Express LRS this is running, but I do believe you can bind version 3 remote controllers to this drone if you wanted to use your own remote. When it comes to the software and the configuration on this drone, everything comes pre-configured from the factory. In the Ascent goggles, there are settings available for the Ascent digital FPV system, but the drone itself comes pre-configured from the factory. There is no settings available for the drone. There is no rates available, bank angle controls, anything to do with the flight characteristics itself. In fact, at release, we didn't even know what software this drone was running because CaddX haven't published it. They have made no official configuration or software available. However, I have figured out what is going on, and rather than this drone shipping with what you might have expected, such as Betaflight or iNav, instead, the Protos actually ships with PX4. That PX4 software is pre-configured, and as I've said, there are no settings for that available in the goggles. However, you can actually connect this drone to your computer via USB-C and configure it via the Q Ground Control app. In Q Ground Control, you can actually do things like adjust the rates, the expo, and even the bank angle in stabilized mode, although CaddX do not provide you any official information on how to do this. I am publishing a specific video on how to adjust the settings on the Protos, and I will be releasing that in the near future. And there is also rumours that we might see an official Betaflight target for this from CaddX at least. And when I say official, I mean official from CaddX, not necessarily Betaflight themselves. However, that hasn't been made available at the point of me recording this video. When it comes to flight modes on this drone, CaddX have included 3 options. We have angle mode, which is your traditional starting mode if you're trying to learn how to fly. You have acro mode, which will give you full rotational control over the drone. And they've also included position hold mode. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this drone does not have GPS on board, but it does have visual positioning sensors underneath, and that is what CaddX is using to give you that position hold capability. That, though, is going to have altitude limits. CaddX say indoors position hold will work up to 4 meters and outdoors it'll work up to 2 meters. If you were to fly it higher than the capability of these sensors, it will still use the onboard baro sensor to maintain altitude, but it will no longer have position hold. And as a result of it not having GPS, you are also not going to have features like return to home or any of those additional fail-safe features like you find on the likes of the DJI Neo, and it is something that you do need to be a little bit careful of, because whilst it is going to give you some position hold capability, it is certainly not going to be at the same level that you would expect to find on one of DJI's drones. Externally, the drone is pretty much entirely made of plastic. The ducts have quite a solid feel to them, but they do bend a little. I'm intrigued at how they're going to hold up in crashes. This top section has a nice hard feel to it as well. Certainly doesn't feel brittle like you've had on some quads before. Underneath then, it's all plastic apart from this area in the middle here. This is actually metal. This is the heatsink for the built-in electronics, most likely the digital FPV system. And just something to note is that does get very, very hot, so please bear that in mind. Overall though, I have to say it does feel nice and solid, and there's a nice bit of protection up front there for the FPV camera as well. There's no carbon, so it will be interesting to see how the arms hold up in a heavy crash, because all of that is plastic. But overall, I actually think it feels very, very good. Now, when it comes to the main technical specs of this drone, I'm just going to walk you through what Caddx have told us, and then we'll have a bit more of a look in the teardown. It is based on the Caddx Protos AAI 1.0, which uses the STM32 F405. It has a BMI 270 gyro on board, the SPL06 barometer on board, and also has an ESP8285 based Express LRS receiver running on 2.4 GHz. The ESC is said to be rated at 12 amp and supports Blue Jay and B Heli S. With regards to the camera on the drone, Caddx say it is a 1/1.2 inch sensor with a 147-degree field of view and a 16:9 image ratio that supports up to 1080p 60 frames a second, but you can also set it to 720p 60 frames a second as well. And Caddx are saying the latency on that Ascent digital FPV system is approximately 35 milliseconds. RF power-wise, that Ascent system can output up to a maximum of 100 milliwatts on this drone. You can choose between 25 or 100 milliwatts. We may see higher power VTXs for the Ascent system coming in the future. Now, weight-wise, Caddx have said the drone weighs 100 grams in some of the images, but the technical specification says 104 grams. So let's just see if they pulled a DJI. Without the battery, we're coming in at 61.68 grams. And then if we pop the battery in, pop it on the scales, we're coming in at 103.45, pretty much on the nail for that 104. As I've said, the battery is 840 milliamp hours, and Caddx say it's going to give you around 10 minutes of flight time. They say 8.5 minutes in the main specification. When it comes to the motors, Caddx say they are 1102s, 14,000 kVs, and they are fitted with HQ props U40mm×3 GRPC 1.5s. Next, moving over to the Ascent goggles. Now, if you've used Avatar HD before, these may look very familiar because externally they are almost identical to the Caddx goggles L for the Avatar HD system. However, there are a few changes, the color of the plastics being the biggest, and obviously the digital system that is built into them. Like the goggles L, these goggles feature a single 1920 by 1080p 60Hz LCD panel, which they say is 4.5 inches. Externally, you will find a set of controls on the right hand side. So we have a joystick, a back button and a record button. Underneath, we have our power input as well as an unmarked port. On the goggles L, this port is actually for the head tracking updates, although in the instructions for these goggles there is no label attached, so we'll have to have a look in the teardown what that is all about. That power connector can take between 6 and 25.2 volt, so it is 2 to 6S capable. And as I've said, it has a built-in DVR as well, with the SD card slot located up here. They've also included a new foam mask on this, which honestly feels a lot better than the mask on the goggles L. And then you have your flexible strap on the back with a CaddX FPV pad. As I've said, this goggle is based on the new Ascent system. It supports both the 1080p 60 as well as 720p 60 modes. They say it has a maximum RF power of 30 dBm, which will be 1 watt. So the goggles can output up to 1 watt, although the drone itself is still limited to 100 milliwatts. The Ascent system, like Avatar HD, is still a two-way digital FPV system. The goggles transmit telemetry to the air unit, and the air unit transmits video back to the goggles, and that is why the goggles transmit. They say it has a maximum code rate of up to 50 megabits a second, average 32 milliseconds latency, and has built-in left-hand circular polarized antennas with a gain of 4.9 dB. When it comes to those built-in antennas, it is worth me highlighting that these goggles only have 2 antennas. The original goggles L actually had 4 antennas in them. You had 2 patch antennas on the front, and then you had 2 omnidirectional antennas on either side. However, the Ascent goggles only have 2 patch antennas. There are no omnidirectional antennas built into these goggles, and as a result of that, you are only going to get the best signal from these goggles when they are facing your quad. And whilst all patch antennas still have some omnidirectional behavior, if you are flying with these goggles behind you or to the side of you, you could see a dramatic drop in the RF performance. This is Ian from the future, and at this point I want to step in and tell you about a little incident I had with my goggles. I have torn these goggles down, I took them apart, I put them back together, they were working fine, no problems at all, and then a couple of days later they randomly burned out. I have released a dedicated repair video showing what happened, and unfortunately it turned out that one of the inductors inside the goggles had burned out. I can't comment 100% in any way if this was caused by me or by CaddX, or a product failure, a part failure, or what actually led to this issue. What I can tell you is my goggles were taken apart, reassembled correctly, and used for between 4 and 5 hours without incident prior to this happening. Then I took them to the field, and then they just stopped working. The coil that burned out is an inductor on a regulator, and this is a rather unusual part to fail, so it is possible I did something to cause this, but it is only right that I did say what happened, and if you're interested in seeing a bit more about that incident, do check out the link to it in the description. One other change on these goggles compared to the L is this, the battery, because CaddX didn't include a battery with the goggles L. However, with this kit they have. It is actually very similar to the battery that DJI had for their goggles. That is the original DJI battery. The CaddX one is a bit bigger, less proprietary. It has an XT30 for the output on this side, has a USB-C port on this side, and then when it comes to the spec on this battery, you can see it is 7.2 volts, 3200 milliamp hour, and it is labeled the CaddX goggle battery. Now, they also include a cable with the kit as well, which is basically an XT30 to barrel connector to fit into the bottom of the goggles down there. What's nice about that is if your battery goes flat, you can simply use it with any normal 2S pack. In my teardown of this battery, I did find something a little bit concerning. Well, quite a lot concerning. I found that the wires on my battery for the temperature sensor went over the top of a bunch of capacitors that are at permanently live feedback voltage. These wires are enamel coated wires, but they are not protected. It's my personal belief that this is an unacceptable risk. There is the potential here for these wires to actually rub on the battery and then cause a short, which could, in worst case scenario, result in a fire. I did raise this issue with CaddX, and I have been told by CaddX that they have resolved this in future production. However, I have not seen that future production. I've seen no evidence of the changes that CaddX have made, and whilst they have told me they believe the battery is safe, they are making changes moving forward. Just one last point I want to make on the goggles, and I have stressed this already on the drone. Whilst the drone is only compatible with these goggles are only compatible with this drone at this time as well. You cannot use the Ascent goggles with Avatar HD, although CaddX have said that they're going to be releasing standalone VTXs as used in the Protos drone in the near future. Also included with the Ascent kit is this, the remote controller. Now, this is probably one of the more controversial parts of the system because it is based on Express LRS. However, it isn't fully supported or officially sanctioned by the Express LRS dev team. It has been completely customized for use on this system. There's no display, there's no app control, there's no Edge TX. We don't really know what software CaddX is using. It certainly has DJI-like behavior in the sense of press and release, press and hold to turn on, and the same thing to turn off. With regards to the controls, we have two gimbals, obviously on the front. They feel okay. I'll be honest, they're a bit more solid than I was expecting. In the corners, there's very little flex, actually. I'm not going to pretend they're the best gimbals in the world, but they're certainly not the worst. So, yeah, they're okay. Sticks are quite short. Do we have adjustment on the stick? We do, but there's no nut to hold it from the look of it. So we can unscrew it out, but there's no nut on it to be able to lock it at a further out distance. I don't know if they've included anything with the accessories. I haven't really gone through that yet, but you could replace the stick ends because they are quite short, just showing you it there above the radio. You've then got the power button, LEDs, we've got a button here, not sure what that one does, and then on the top we've got a push button momentary, 3-position switch, 3-position switch, push button momentary, latch in, arm in, and then a gimbal style potentiometer. Now, there is also a USB-C port on the bottom for updating the firmware, and then the remote controller is made of plastic, and then there is these rubber grips around the back, although it's not really rubbery, it's more plastic rubber. I'm not going to really say it's going to offer anything additional to it. And really, that's about all there is to show you on the remote. Now, as I've said, it is based off Express LRS 2.4 gigs. We're going to guess the antenna is built in there, though you can use your own remote with the system as well if you want to. The next thing I want to try and do is give you a bit of an overview of the menus as well as the OSD on the Ascent system. As you can see here, we're looking through the main FPV view and we have all our standard OSD information on the display. You can see we're in acro mode, we've got our battery voltages, we've got our goggles battery voltage, current bit rate as well as latency shown across the bottom. We have our standby mode information, our flight time, our signal information for both the digital Ascent FPV system as well as our remote, our signal information, as well as our SD card details in the top corner. When I go into the menu system, if you've used Avatar HD before, this may look very familiar to you. This is a very similar layout. We have our channel selection, we have our settings, and then we have our playback menu. Under channel, we can select up to 8 channels, the same as we could on Avatar HD. This will change though depending on the mode that you are in. There is also the option to turn on channel hopping within this menu as well, where it will automatically select the channel based on signal. Next, we have our settings menu, and this is split down into camera settings, display settings, record set, and device. We have our main system settings on the main page. So we have our transmit power for the Ascent system, 25 or 100 milliwatts. We have our frame rate settings, 50 or 60 frames a second. Our resolution settings, 720p or 1080p, standby mode on or off, preference, either smooth or high quality. I'm not exactly sure what this does at this time, but I've left it in smooth. And then we have our bandwidth setting, which allows us to select 20, auto, or 10 megahertz. There's also language settings as well as our battery warning settings available under this menu as well. Under camera settings, here you have the option to set your scene, which you can scroll through the different options, day and night. We have our sharpness settings, our aspect ratio, which is fixed at 16:9. We have our EV, white balance, 3DNR settings, as well as saturation and rotation settings. Display allows us to configure the display on the goggles, so we have our custom OSD settings. This is currently set to auto, but this performs just like it did on Avatar HD, allowing you to select either between Betaflight, iNav, Ardrew, FetTech, KISS, Quicksilver or off. We've got a goggles icon style option, brightness settings for the display, OSD position settings, viewfinder, and then some grayed out settings that aren't available yet. Under the record settings, here is where you can format the SD card for the goggles. You can enable the auto recording on takeoff, set looped recording as well as recording time for the files. It does allow you to select the recording device, but as there is no DVR in the ear unit, this is only available for VRX, which is the goggles at this time. Then finally, we have our device settings, which enables our buzzer, our instructions, VRX recording bitrate options. This is available in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 and 50 megabits. Our rangefinder mode, our mode option, which is currently fixed at standard, our weak signal settings, device info, and our front LED settings. We also have the playback menu, which allows you to view any files that you've got saved on your SD card. Obviously, this is a beginner drone. It is designed to have some nice, easy to use flight modes. So we're going to start in the position mode and see how that feels, how that performs. And we'll have a look at what that position hold works like with the sensors on the bottom. We'll then move into angle mode or stabilized, and then we'll get it into acro. Okay, so we're in position hold. I'm going to arm the aircraft. Let's take off. I'm just going to go forward a little bit. First observation is the controls are very dumbed down. I'm at max forward stick there. So this is the kind of speed we're getting in the position hold. Oh, we had a bit of a judder on the quad there. Oh, I don't know what that's about. Okay, that's weird. Just flying it around. I'm just going to stop and hover. So let me bring it in closer to me and we'll have a look at what the hovering performance is like with this position hold. We're getting a bit of jittering. I don't know what that's about. So let me just bring it there. We're pointing into the sun, but you can see me there. Okay, so I'm just going to set the throttle to midpoint, which is there, roughly there. And you can see the position hold behavior. There's not much wind on these initial flights here today. It is moving around a little bit, but it certainly is holding position. It's not floating off like it would in stabilized mode. So for instance, if I move it into stabilized, I've moved it into stabilized now and you can see it's drifting off. But if I put it back into position hold, yeah, it's doing okay. It's certainly not GPS position hold. And I'm intrigued at what it's like if I push the quad. I'm just going to... Yeah, so obviously it's not going to return to the position it was in because it isn't GPS based. Sorry, I caught the throttle then. I'm just going to set it there. There we go. So yeah, it's not going to return to the position it was in before, but it does somewhat hold position. I just wonder how well it's going to be able to do with a bit of wind. Okay, so back in the goggles. It's very dark when you look towards the sun. So this mode is very tame. There is really not much bank angle here at all. What these jitters are on the aircraft, I have no idea. I do not understand what that is. Yeah, it's very tame indeed. So that's going to get people flying. I would actually, in all honesty, like a bit more bank angle on this. I think you could get into trouble if you were in this mode with any wind. It is super still here today, and as a result of that, it's okay. But yeah, I think you could have some problems. Oh, battery level is flat. I think we might need to bring the battery in and swap. 4 minutes of flight time there. Was that me or was that the battery? Let's see. That might have been me with the throttle. Okay, I think that's about enough I need to understand on position mode. Let's now turn around. Let's now drop into angle mode. Okay, so the first observation is the throttle behavior is different between the modes. So when you switch the modes, you do need to be aware of that. Angle mode is still limited angle, so it's got more bank angle. Okay, so we've definitely got a little bit more there in angle mode. Throttle is sensitive. Still a few jitters. That's really not the easiest mode to fly at all. But it's doable. I'm pushing the battery. We're at 5 minutes and 38 at the moment. I want to see how far we can go with the battery in total. There is some weird flight behavior on this drone. The throttle is really hard to get stable. You end up constantly pulsing the throttle. Oh, yeah, as you see there, okay, it's certainly a ducted whoop. It definitely has washout. Getting a bit more used to it now. I'm not going to pretend it's the easiest quad to fly. That towards the sun behavior is very disconcerting. Oh, yeah, you definitely get some washout. I'm having to constantly pulse the throttle. I can't seem to find a stable position for the throttle at all. That could be because of the simply small size of the remote. I think I might try later on when I move into acro mode is try it on my big remote to see how it feels. Yeah, look, okay, it's flyable. Oh, we've killed it. Batteries must have gone. It's died and gone off. So this is acro mode. So let's have a feel for what we've got. Man, is there some expo. Jesus. Oh my God. That link just stuttered up completely then. Let me just... Am I getting some stutters on the link? Okay, sorry, let's try and get static here and move around a little bit. throttle is all over the place. Lots of stutters on the RF link. Now, in theory, I'm not expecting the same RF performance in some ways because this is only a single antenna compared to the dual antennas on the Moonlight built into the Go film. Oh my God, I've lost video. I've lost video. Oh, it's come back. What was... Okay. I might be expecting a bit much from the video link going that far down the field. In the end, I pumped the throttle. It's like the expos between the sticks are not the same. So you've got no simple coordination between yaw, pitch and roll. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a, can I flat yaw? No. Okay. I now see what people mean about flying this thing. I might need a bit more camera angle. Okay, let's just take it around here a little bit. It is a small aircraft, so we should only expect a certain amount of wind resistance and things like that from it. I'm definitely seeing stutters on the RF link. Oh, I'm just going to do some yaws. See, it seems smooth there, but there are... Oh, yeah, that's horrible. I'm going to try up in the RF power and seeing what that does, because we are on the same stock setting as I had it with on the other system. Oh man, I now see why everyone struggled. I'm kangarooing, I can't get the throttle right at all. I may bind this to my TX15 in a minute and see how I feel on the TX15. Oh, stutter. Probably need more camera angle. Batteries 3.6. Oh, what is that stutter? That is... I'm gonna shove it into... Whoa, okay. There is some dramatic behaviour differences between acro. I can't move forward. Look, I'm banking. It won't move forward. I got full pitch forward on the stick. It won't move forward in the wind. That is crazy. Right, let's get this in. Okay, now this time I am using my remote, the TX15. So now I've just got a bit more movement on the sticks to be able to get a bit of a feel for this compared to something else. Oh man, that is so much better instantly. Right, okay. Let's now see what this feels like from an RF link perspective properly. Flying with that original remote is going to do no one any favours learning to fly. I can promise you that. You need something where you've got a bit more feel on the sticks. Obviously, I'm incredibly lucky to be able to choose something like the TX15. Oh God, this wind. Let's just go behind the bushes here, see what the RF does. Okay, no, that's fine. Let's go down the field, shall we? We're being blown around. It is windy, so some of what you're seeing is wind and some of it is the aircraft itself. I just want to fly down here and let's have a bit of a feel for what happens. Oh man, that exposure is terrible. Man, I can't even lower it to see because it's just going dark. Come on, get down a bit. Look how dark that is. Okay, the RF side it's holding up okay. That's not shocking. From a penetration perspective, I'm not going to call that the same as Avatar, but it's not shocking considering the antennas on the aircraft. A lot more testing will need to be done on a penetration to really get an understanding of what it's like. If we come up this edge, oh God, it's wind. This is certainly not the best day to be flying it. I wanted to follow that path up, but we're okay. We've got more RF power than we had on Avatar, but we're okay. I'm going to give up on that. That's not working. Oh, there's some grain in that camera. Camera definitely isn't the best. It's not smooth though. Let's just give it a bit of a push around. Whatever flight controller is on this is not great. And I don't mean the hardware. I'm talking about the flight stack. Its tuning is not good. You're constantly having to pump the throttle. Can we do a flip? Oh God, that was close. Not sure I'm going to try that again in this wind. The reds are just so slow. Let's try. Oh, overshot. But it recovered. I didn't hit the ground. Neo's worse. The problem is you're putting too much stick in because the expo is so high. I need to get some time on this properly. Okay, this battery's goosed. Let's bring it in. I am at my normal flight field now for a second bunch of tests. And what we're going to do first of all is just go for a quick little scout with the GoFilm 20. So this is CaddX's sort of previous starter quad. What I just want to do more than anything is fly it for a moment on the Goggles L, just so I've got a bit of a feel of how the Avatar link looks and behaves. Also, what the signal behavior is when I'm going behind things. Really, just so we've got an understanding of what to expect from Ascent. We're going round. Oh, we just made that through there. So really, more than anything, it's a baseline. It's a point in the sand, a line in the sand to go, hey, this is what Avatar is like. This is the standard that we're expecting from the system. Just gonna scout about. What's it like with the bright sun? Where's the sun? Sun's up there. So if we look at the trees, don't want to be that high. But actually what I am going to do is just go towards those bushes. Looking at the sun, yeah, very blacked out on these goggles as well. Just looking at them. But yeah, really, more than anything, just to get a baseline for what it does. I think that's pretty much enough. I don't really think I need to do much more than that. What we might do is, let's just go down here, go around these set of trees, just watch for the branches. It's very wet here. We've had flooding in Wales this week. So that's definitely posed some challenges. I just realised that run I did behind the trees there was with me pointing out towards the field and on the back of the goggles antennas. So let's just do another run through there, but this time with me looking straight forward. That way we can see what the avatar signal looks like this time. Ooh, branches. Still getting some breakup, but not as bad as it was the first time. And then let's just go back around those trees. I'll have to remember which way I've flown this when comparing. I go again. This time I'm just going to turn myself a bit more that way. So I'm now pointing myself, my head, up towards this, but we are losing it just there, but you can see it's not too bad at all. Okay, so we're now on the Protos. We are in acro mode. So I'm just going to go for a scout around the field before we try then to head out behind those bushes. Wind is definitely picking up. Instantly, having flown Avatar, the stuttering is instantly visible to me. Oh, we've got a dog walker over there. It's instantly noticeable. I can just see it. It's not just in the quad, it's in the link. Let's go for a spin around here and have a look at, oh God, it was there then as well. Oh, that's very dark coming through there. Just making sure I've got the light level down. I might need to turn the brightness up on this display because, oh God, I'm blind. No, we're fine. I'm being told we're fine. Oh, we're starting to get signal drop. I'm going to go through a lot slower than I did with Avatar. I am on the back of... No. We're in the trees. No, we lost it. We couldn't make that through. Now that was me pointing away, not pointing towards. Now there is potentially a technical reason for this as well, because there is only 2 antennas in these goggles and they are pointing, directional antennas pointing out, not antennas on the sides. So there could be a reason for this. Now I need to figure out where this is. I'm going to shove this into pause hold. I can hear it. Ah, I found it. It's holding. I've put it in pause hold. There we go. I can fly my way out, look. Hello. There I am. Okay, so let's try that again. This time though, I am now pointing towards it. So whilst we were able to make it through with Avatar, pointing away from it, I couldn't with Ascent. So now this time, let's try it pointing towards it. This is exactly the same RF power that I used on Avatar. And there, this time, we've been able to make it through. You've been able to see that low signal behavior a lot better there as well. I'm gonna put these differences down to the antenna differences in the goggles more than the differences in the RF system, because that is quite similar. Now, obviously there you were able to see that low signal behavior from the Avatar system. So as the signal from the Ascent system, sorry. So as the signal drops, it goes into this focus mode and then 4x3 mode. And then as the signal improves, ooh, I lost it a bit there. Ooh, that was me. As the signal improves, it then comes back up, but it goes down to that very blocky and then big sides going black compared to Avatar that just has that full sort of breakdown of the image. Right, this battery's gone, let's swap it out. 720p, 10 megabits a second. And let's now see how this feels and flies. More than anything, I just want to have an understanding of how the link feels at this point. A little less stutters. Not perfect, but that is better. That, ooh, no, maybe not. Yeah, I actually think it's dropped frames as much as stutters. Yeah, okay. I'm just looking for how it's handling. The drone obviously struggles a little bit in the wind. Again, these are just early test flights to try and get a feel for it, a feel for the system. Let me rotate around. Let's now have a look at, let's go through. Stay away from that puddle is what we are going to do. Let's, on 10 megabits, have a feel for going through until it's clear. Holding up okay. We're getting some breakup. Certainly wouldn't say, hey, that is brilliant. But considering it's a much smaller antenna than Avatar, single antenna, I think from a penetration perspective, that's not too bad, although we do have some more RF power there. A lot more testing is going to be needed, really, to understand from an RF perspective. Do you know, I will say this. Okay, it's not perfect. There's definitely stutters, but it's definitely better on 10 megabits a second. 720p, but there's no detail. My God, I can't see anything. No detail at all. Early days. The RF link needs work, that's for sure. Certainly not a replacement for Avatar. It's very cheap though with what Caddx are offering. I would like to see some tuning options on this quad because it is terrible even on a proper remote. And we'll talk about that all a bit more back at the studio. Okay, now we are in 20 megabits a second, 1080p mode. Now this is obviously the highest quality mode the system does. Higher resolution, but obviously that is going to have an impact on the video. Oh man, I am instantly already seeing a lot more stutters than I was in 720p. All of my initial flights have been in 720p because that should have been the best performance so far. Oh, this expo on this drone is terrible. Let's just take it for a scoot around the field, a gentle turn. The reason I'm doing gentle arcs here is so I can see the stutter. It's really bad. I don't know if this is going to show up on the video. It's a different stutter to what I was seeing on OpenIPC. The OpenIPC stutter was a bit more predictable. This isn't. It's there, it's not. My God, that goes dark. Yeah, that is... Oh, we dropped down his signal there a moment. You can see the focus modes on the side. Let's just bring it in. How do we look going around these trees? Oh, I'm going to go up. Yeah, I do not have the confidence. Again, we shouldn't directly compare this to the fly lens. We shouldn't directly compare this to the GoFilm because the GoFilm's twin antenna, Moonlight VTX, so that's going to have an impact. I'm also now pointing back out, forward to the field. So for instance, if I just rotate myself now, I am now pointing more in there. So again, when it comes to direct comparison, you're going to need to use identical setups from an antenna perspective as well, because this has got a much smaller antenna than there is on the GoFilm. Should we go for another flip? Oh, it's just there's not a lot of power in it. Well, you can. I wouldn't want to do it at low level. Interestingly, why did we go to blocky signal there? I'm pointing away, that's why. Sorry, turned around to point at the aircraft again. It's very hard to see the ground when you're looking at the light. That exposure behaviour, let's check that out. Oh, just look at that. It's really dark on my side, really dark. For these flights, I've now messed around with the rates. We've moved them up to 700. We've reduced the expo in Q ground control. We're going to try it with the original remote first, and then we'll move on to my TX15 and see how that feels as well. We're now in acro, so I'm going to take it slowly to start and see how it now behaves. Definitely got a bit, oh, do you know what? That is so much better compared to those early flights. Whoa. Oh. I lost that there. Okay, we've got flip mode. Hey. Oh, what is going on? What is going on? It says lost. Oh, oh my God. Oh my God. What the fuck was that? Okay, back for flight 2. And that was a little bit worrying. I do not know what that loss of RC signal was about. I can happily say that tuning acro mode feels a lot better. Even on the remote, it's changed the feel of this remote completely. Look, this isn't a 5-inch freestyle quad, so you're not going to be, you know, doing crazy flips and rolls. But it is much better with those settings in acro mode. I'm gonna talk about the RF link in another part of the video. I'm still seeing stutters. I'll go as far as to say at this point, this doesn't fly half bad, if I'm honest. That's a half decent flying little acro quad at this moment. Not terrible at all. You definitely get a washout. Oh, that video is noisy towards the light. That is a real issue on this camera. It also likes to gain altitude. That is night and day. Honestly. Night and day. Right, I'm not going to push this battery too far this time, because we've all, oh God, we've all seen what happens. Okay, so we've got a bit more angle on the camera. You can see at the top that you have the frame cover in view a little bit. Just gonna push it down a little bit towards the bottom of the field. Man, that flight performance is night and day. Now I've adjusted acro. So much better. Honestly. Now, I have spoke about the RF link in the early parts of the video. It certainly is not terrible. You know, it's certainly not the worst in the world. It's not the best in the world, that's for sure. Sorry, let me just stop a minute. The goggles are falling down my face. It's certainly not the worst in the world, and it's not the best. It's got some way to go. That's for sure. There are micro stutters all over it, although it is much better in 720p mode, which I am in now. This isn't 1080, this is 720. In the 1080p mode, it definitely struggles. It isn't as bad stutters as I've seen in OpenIPC. That was unflyable for me in comparison. However, they are absolutely still evident, still there. And I think CaddX have got a bit of a way to go on this system before it's tuned to the level that we'd seen with Avatar. I'm behind the goggles at the moment. Oh, okay. Okay, so to share with you my thoughts on the Caddx Protos drone kit, but also my initial experience with Ascent, because this is not only a ready-to-fly drone kit, it is an entirely new digital FPV system. It is a drone. It is a set of goggles. It is a remote. So there is a lot to discuss here, and I'm going to try and compartmentalize this into separate parts. We're going to start with the Ascent ready-to-fly drone kit. CaddX have put together a nice set here. It has everything you need to get in the air. We have the drone, we have the remote, and we have the goggles. And everything in here is all you need to get up and running. But there are elements of this that I am not happy with. There are elements of this that could be better. As I talked about in my teardown of the goggles, this battery, in my opinion, was dangerous. However, CaddX have now told me that they have rectified the issues that I have raised. They don't believe it's as serious as I said it is, but regardless of that, they have made changes to production. I, though, haven't seen evidence of those changes. I haven't seen any pictures, so I can only go by what CaddX have said. If they have made the changes they said they have, then that takes this battery from being potentially dangerous to being fine. But I can neither confirm or deny that is the case. What I can tell you is CaddX have told me that the battery is safe, but they are making changes to production. So As long as they do make those changes, I'm okay with that. But right now, I can only go with what I see here, and that battery has a very real issue. With regards to the goggles, no major complaints here at all. Absolutely fine, other than the fact that my goggles burnt out. As I said earlier in that very short clip, I have released a repair video where I talk about it. I cannot with any certainty say it is my fault or it is CaddX's fault. My goggles had been disassembled and reassembled for teardown purposes. I've done that with, I'm not going to say hundreds of goggles because they're not hundreds of goggles. I've done it with tens of goggles. I've never had a problem before. They were working fine for 4+ hours after the assembly and reassembly on different days. They were fine until I took them to the field that day. I do not understand that failure. However, I am not going to take out the fact that somehow it could have been caused by me, but for an inductor to burn out leads me to think there may have been something going on. But other than that, the goggles I think are great. The remote is very cheap, but it's okay. Early doors, I thought it was terrible, but it isn't the remote that's terrible. It's the tuning on the drone, and we'll come on to that when we're talking about the drone in a minute. So I'm going to place some forgiveness on the remote, apart from the fact that A, it is using a forked version Express LRS, which isn't certified, or I shouldn't say certified, isn't approved by the Express LRS dev team. And it is my findings that the range on this remote is very poor. You saw in my flight videos, I lost signal towards the end in that last flight on the remote when it was just behind me. It literally was the other side of the hedge. There is no power settings on this remote to change. So it is a very limited remote. And again, that falls into play when you start thinking about this as, does it make a good new starter kit when talking about this in comparison to buying separate components? I do also have a bit of a gripe with the batteries. Proprietary, I don't like, but I understand it. My biggest gripe, though, is the fact that they don't self-discharge. You can put them in storage mode via this charger, but it's really quite confusing to use. I put mine into storage mode, and then I couldn't get it back out of storage mode to charge the batteries when I needed to use them later. For a new starter product, if you're going to make it easy for users, the battery should have been dealing with themselves and not having to do it in the base station. Where most of my gripes on this are around being great for new starters is the drone, because frankly, whilst the hardware is great, the choice of software PX4 is just, in my opinion, a terrible decision. But worse than that, the tuning is terrible as well. In position mode, it is too held back. It is too restricted. So much so, you even seen, I couldn't fly forward in my second set of tests with the drone in any windy conditions. There is also a real noticeable step change when you move from position mode to the altitude mode, because when you go out of range of the bottom sensors, it has to switch mode. And when it does that, you get this sort of jerking of the quad. I didn't really spot it myself in the goggles. It was only when I was doing the editing and I put it up on the screen was I able to see that. So again, there is no nice transition between the Opti mode, which is down below. Stabilized mode is actually okay. It could do with a bit more bank angle, but that's fine. Acro though, out the door, manual mode, I have no idea why they have shipped it the way it is, especially with regards to just how much expo they have in acro mode. It makes it almost unflyable. The difference when I tuned it with my own custom rate profile was incredible between that and the remote. And I thought it was the remote, honestly, but it isn't. I said I was going to fly with my TX15 after I did the rate changes. I didn't bother because this felt okay then because of the change in rates. I am shocked they have shipped it like that. Just changing the rates up to 700 and then dropping that expo down to 0.35 makes a dramatic difference. Even just dropping the expo down to 0.35 will make a huge difference in itself, and I think CaddX should do that from the factory. However, there is also some real concerning behavior here. You saw my flyaway. After that crash, the drone flew. It was fine. It then said it lost signal, yet I was still controlling it with the remote controller. And then as I was coming towards me, it then went back into opti mode, and then it went to the moon. That was not me. You can't even make it do that in opti mode via the sticks. It has limited altitude control with regards to rate of increase. That went full to the moon by itself, and my only option was to hit disarm, which made it come to the ground. Also, that low battery behavior is not great either. You saw when I drained the battery down on the quad to the point of failure, it just shut off. The risk with the behavior this has is the fact that you could lose the drone and then there's no power to be able to enable the beeper on the remote. So you've got no way to go find it again because it's totally lost power. So again, these are tuning issues around that PX4 software that really should be improved. None of that I actually think is hardware. That to the moon behavior has got to be PX4. That battery behavior is a battery behavior within PX4. It should do what Betaflight does to the point of you're forced to land and that's it. I was able to drain this to the point of no return, ESC and power shutdown, and as I've said, that is going to potentially cause people to lose their drone because they have no way of then going to find it. With regards to the quad itself, I actually really like the hardware. Overall, I think it's great, and it flies really quite well once you get the acro tune in there. The only other observation I will make on it is it has a habit of resetting power on crashes. Even the mildest of crash, any sort of tap on the bottom of the aircraft, it just cuts power. It was doing it before I tore it down. It's done it since the torn down, and other people have mentioned this behavior to me as well. It is something that this drone is doing. A final note on the quad is I will also say this top design for the battery, whilst it definitely holds it in okay, I think those screws are going to tear out on this canopy. The front screws are held through the camera, and I'll put some B-roll on the screen so you're seeing this. However, the back screws are just in plastic, and all of the pressure from that top clip is going into the plastic, and I think that is going to be a problem over time. As for what this comes together like as a kit, and I had some different opinions on this even last week than I did today, in the sense of when this launched, there was one major factor that didn't make this a great choice for new starters, and it was the fact that it is based on this brand new Ascent system, and you're getting a set of goggles and a remote controller that you can't use with anything else. Even though this remote is Express LRS, it really isn't going to be ideal to use with anything else. And the Ascent goggles, well, this was the only Ascent product. There was nothing more you could buy. But that is changing. CaddX have now released pre-orders for the Ascent VTX, where you can go out and buy that, and that means that you could then go and put that Ascent VTX into something else, which then makes this less of a dead end than it was before. So I'm comfortable with this no longer being a completely dead end product. I do, though, feel as a new starter product, it is missing in many different places, but CaddX are not alone in missing in many different places. And I should say there are very few drones out there other than the DJI Neo series that really does deliver the best possible out-the-box experience for a new user, because it has all of the extra nannying features that mean you can't get yourself into too much trouble. And when I mean too much trouble, you can still drown it in water. But the great thing with the likes of the Neo is it does have GPS. It will come back. it will stop you doing things like I did with this on that low battery behavior. So whilst it isn't perfect, I do have to say that CaddX have got some right here, and it is changing and improving. But then we also need to think about the digital FPV system, which is Ascent, which we're going to talk about next. Okay, moving on to Ascent, and this is a twofold conversation. Ascent as it is in this drone, and Ascent as a system. There are a few things that happened in making these videos I just want to talk about first of all. The first drop of signal completely out the blue. I now believe that was because I hit the null on the antenna on the drone. This quad only has one antenna, and it is located just under that plastic down there. It is a very compromised design. It's far from ideal. It's not sticking up at the back like you might have installed yourself. And when I came to the side, I would have been directly on the edge of that antenna, and I probably hit the null. Obviously, I talked about this extensively in the videos. There is a lot of stuttering in this system. It isn't shocking. It isn't as bad as I've seen on OpenIPC when I was testing that gear, WFPNG, I should say. However, it is not remotely as smooth as it is on Avatar, as it is on DJI, HD0, analog. There is a real noticeable stutter to the system, but it isn't, oh, I can't fly this. It is also much worse in the 1080p mode. If you drop the system down to 720p, either 10 or 20 megahertz, it's better. 720p 10 megahertz is actually best in my experience, but it's very similar between the two, but it is absolutely worse in that 1080p mode. Penetration on the RF system actually seems okay. Again, you have to take into account you have two patch antennas on the front of the goggles, so you need to make sure you're facing the quad. In that first test, I went into the bushes because I was facing away. However, on the second test, I turned around and I was able to make it through. The RF system actually behaves quite well. It gracefully moves down through the signal behavior. There's no cliff I found so far that it just goes off the edge. It does drop down. You get that focus mode appear, and then you get the black bars. That's all okay. I can't 100% say it is better or worse than Avatar like for like on power, because we're not testing like for like on the quads. Even when I flew with the GoFilm 20, that's got two antennas with a Moonlight VTX. It's still a much better design quad from an RF antenna perspective. But I'm not completely displeased with what I've seen on it. But there are some alarm bells here. And the alarm bells on Ascent are as follows. This juddering, jittering that I've talked about. That cannot be the norm. That has to change. Secondly, we have only seen this system with 60 frames a second. CaddX have announced the VTX is going to be available. Again, 60 frames a second. We've had leaked of some new industrial, professional hardware, VRX and VTX. But again, this is 60 frames a second. We have seen zero evidence of 100 or 120 frames a second coming for the Ascent system, which means at this point it is stuck in this low-end territory, or, as many of us probably know where this is going to end up getting used a lot, one-way flight territory. As I mentioned earlier, I am less concerned of this being a dead end now that CaddX have announced that you can buy the Ascent Light VTX. You can put that board in other systems. And again, if you're interested in seeing that board, I have a full teardown of the quad, so go check it out. But what I don't see is a light at the end of the tunnel for this that could make it brilliant in the future. Avatar launched in a state that I said was alpha. You shouldn't buy it. I told everyone that. That video is still live. It wasn't, though, because it didn't have 100 frames a second. The system launched with 100 frames a second. It had 720p and 1080p mode. Avatar launched with everything there but it didn't really work properly. Then CaddX fixed it, and Avatar today is an absolutely solid system. It is not perfect. It is not as good as 04. It's arguably not as good as 03, but it does have some benefits. No range limit. You can do some additional modifications around the antennas easily, things like that. Much better OSD support. Avatar does have some good features, but it doesn't have the polished feel of DJI. It doesn't have the RF link of 03 or 04, and it certainly doesn't have the DVR capability of 03 or 04 either. As I mentioned, the latency on this is not as good as it could be. I'm going to pop up the latency charts from my testing on the Ascent system on the screen now. And as you can see, even though that it is 60 frames a second, it is not on par with Avatar HD, 60 frames a second. It's not even on par with DJI, 60 frames a second. Certainly not on par with HD0, 60 frames a second. Whilst the visibility in the display is telling you 20, 30 milliseconds, you're not getting anywhere near that, and I'm seeing more like 50 milliseconds in bench testing, and it is worth me saying that this is best case scenario. But again, CaddX may be able to tune this a little bit, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. I would go as far as saying this isn't as bad as Avatar was on day one. Avatar on day one was shockingly bad. This isn't in that position. It's flyable, it's usable. I don't like the stutters, but most people would be okay with it. I think with a chunk more RF power, the system will stabilize a little bit more as well. But the bare bones of the RF link seems okay. So it certainly doesn't seem to be quite as bad as the position Avatar was in. But what I don't get from this is a feeling of, oh, I can see a great future here, because the fact that there is no hints of 100 frames a second, and we know these goggles won't do 100 frames a second. That's fine. I get that. But I'd love to see some evidence of 100 frames a second. This VRX information that's leaked. The Avatar VRX can do 100 frames a second, whereas this Ascent VRX cannot. That, to me, is a concerning view. And that I'd like to see some evidence, whether we can trust it or not, it is CaddX, of where this system could go. Here and now, where Ascent is absolutely looking to be interesting and a winner is on price, because CaddX are selling the goggles for about $150, $160. They're selling this new Ascent VTX for under $40. It isn't clear how long that is going to be, but you can certainly pre-order it for under $40, which is unheard of in the digital landscape. But just because it's cheap doesn't make it a great deal. And whilst for pootering around the garden or for your kids that might be okay, it is hard for me to sit here and say this is an ecosystem that has huge potential, because we haven't even seen a hint of what that future potential may be yet. Overall, it isn't terrible. It isn't brilliant. Avatar is still better. DJI is still much better. HD0 has the lowest latency overall. But this is really, really cheap. So if you did want to get yourself an Ascent system, hey, if you're willing to blow under $200 and get into digital and you want to fly around the backyard, as long as you're happy with 50 milliseconds of latency, it could be the one for you. That is it for this very, very long video. I hope you found it interesting. Please check out the teardown of the goggles as well as the drone in the description. I want to say a huge thank you to every single person who donates to this channel. We would not have been able to buy this kit without your support. We weren't sent this from CaddX. I went out and bought it. And if you'd like to support us to allow us to keep making content like this, please do consider checking out the links to my Patreon as well as buying me a coffee. It is only through the support of my Patreons am I able to keep making content on this channel. And if you'd like to support us to allow us to be able to make unbiased content without any influence from the manufacturer, please do consider checking it out. Anyway, I'm not going to waste any more of anyone's time. Let's get out of here. Look after yourself, stay safe, and I will speak to you soon.